Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Auburn Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for Thursday, March 21st, 2019. Now called to order at the approximately 7 o'clock p.m. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast live by local access programming. Is there anyone here in the audience tonight that is recording tonight's meeting? You are?
No.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Are you recording the meeting this evening, sir?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My name's Stephen Conn. I have trouble hearing, and I couldn't hear you.
Okay. We'll do what we can to accommodate you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first item on our agenda this evening is the continuation from last month's meeting. So do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion open?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The applicant present. If you could introduce yourself, sir, and go over your presentation, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Attorney Todd Broder from Fletcher Tilton here on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight is Steve Connolly from ATS Equipment and also the LLC that owns the property, and Norman Hill from Land Planning, who's the project engineer. When we were last before you, we discussed the applicant's desire to demolish an existing garage on the property and replace it with a slightly larger garage in a slightly different location. For a number of different reasons that bore themselves out at the last hearing, we took a pause and went back and did a little bit of redesign on the building. You should have a plan, but if you don't, I have. Okay. So the revised plan, the big differences are this. The proposed building that we were in front of you for required a side yard setback variance. The building that's on the sheet in front of you today does not, because its back end is where the back end of the building is currently. Mm-hmm. So in order to make this configuration work, the building had to be pushed further into the parking lot, away from the property line. So on the plan that you see beside me here, and I'm not sure how well you can see it, but we've got the existing garages colored up in a brown color. And the existing garage that we're going to demolish, I'll point to now, but it's in a bit of a mustard color here. The expanded building then, again, pushes out into the site, into the parking area, which is already a paved area. It's already impervious. The size of it increased a little bit, and by a little bit I'll give you the exacts, but initially, so the existing structure is 1,440 square feet. We had proposed a 2,726 square foot structure, and this proposal is now 3,784 square feet. It wasn't the applicant's intention to grow the building that substantially. However, for fundamental reasons to the business, which I'll describe to you, it became required. So there is a large overhead door that exists on the back of the existing facility, which I'm going to point to right now. So in order to have utilization of that overhead garage, we couldn't come to the middle of that door. It would render it useless. So the new design goes beyond that overhead door. And the overhead door is critical to the operation. So now you'll be able to drive in a vehicle and go up into the main brown-colored facility there, which was where they do a little bit of repair and they do some other work in that area with machines, as the previous owner used to do as well, Mr. Murray. And this has been in operation just like this for the last 10 years or so. So the building grew a little bit. That wasn't to be anything other than utilitarian, and because we need to use that overhead door. So 3,784 square foot facility is now what we're proposing. It's all over existing impervious. So with this plan, we would be able to withdraw the variance application. We would not need that. We would also be able to withdraw the amendment to the special permit regarding the rendering of impervious area in the aquifer protection, because we're not increasing that at all. And in conversation with Caleb, we came to that we need the special permit to alter or expand the pre-existing non-conforming use, which is what we really be here for tonight. So that's the new building. Again, the rationale for the size, is the overhead door. The applicant's also been able to have a few conversations with the neighbors, in particular the neighbor to the rear, and they've designed a planting plan, which really what happened were some trees ended up coming down back there and created some holes, and so the visual into the site has been opened up over the years, and so the applicants agreed to do some plantings on the neighbor's property, actually, to make it fill in a little bit better. I'm going to do some repair of the fencing in the back and do some privacy, not the slats, but the fabric along the fence there to do some additional screening from a visual perspective. Norman Hill's here from the engineering office that designed the original site plan with the original stormwater systems and whatnot. So I brought him here if you have any questions about, particularly that aspect of the project. Steve Connolly's here if you have questions about the operations in particular. And Steve did tell you he doesn't hear very well, so we might have to repeat for him, or I'll help translate, or whatever the case may be. But he's here as well, and we're happy to answer any questions about the new proposal. I got it.
Okay, so I just want to, before I continue to go any further, I just want to remind people in the audience, the applicants, the town administration, and each of the board members to please refrain from asking any questions in regards to all matters discussed this evening without first being granted my consent. So would you like to continue with the presentation, or would you like to open it up to members of the board now?
We're ready for your questions.
Okay. Mr. Cussy?
I have none right now.
Okay. Mr. Marion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question through Caleb is, based on the increase of the size of the building, from a special permit perspective, I don't recall that we would regulate any concerns with that building growing larger on this proposal, correct?
It's an existing non-conforming use. So, excuse me, 823 says an existing non-conforming use may be extended in an area by special permit from the Board of Appeals.
With no prescribed dimensional requirements or restrictions, right?
Yeah, they're meeting all the, they're replacing exactly what's there, and anything new is meeting setbacks, so they wouldn't need a variance.
Okay, thanks for that confirmation. So I didn't think that we were bound by any size limitations by that. But I don't have any questions for Mr. Broder.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
None right now, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Blaze?
None for the applicant. I'd like to hear from the abutters that are,
Okay.
if they'd like to speak.
Would you like to continue with the applicant's presentation, I think, first? Or would you rather open to the abutters? I can do either.
I would prefer to open up to the abutters unless the applicant has any additional comments. I think he's satisfied, and I think we well understand based on his explanation of what he's modified.
Okay. Do I have any abutters that would like to speak? No? Okay. Okay, so that was easy. So, do I have any further questions?
None for me.
Okay. The one thing I would like to actually ask the abutters, if you wouldn't mind just stepping up real quick to find out if you are satisfied with the changes that are being made, did they address all your concerns?
I'm Jim Shea, a butter at 14 Stone Street behind the property, and Steve explained what they're going to do for remediation, and we're happy with that. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
My wife, Scott Jess, 16 Stone Street, so I'm right back of him. I got a letter stating, exactly what he plans to do, and I went to the yard and we walked through it and everything, so as long as everything, like he says, goes through, everything's good.
Okay.
After what we talked about.
Great, thank you so much. Ooh, that's loud. Whoa. Yes, sir. I just want to make sure. Okay, so if we have no other questions, concerns,
I have one, actually.
oh, go right ahead, sir.
Just after reviewing my notes from last time. So at this point, well, when we heard last time, the impervious area was being increased by 280 square feet. Is that no longer the case? Okay, thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I apologize for interrupting on a procedural matter, but if you would want to just, on the record, bring our alternates forward as voting members.
Yes, before we vote, I would do that. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, since Mr. Maron brought it up, we have 2 full-time, full voting members absent this evening. And as a result, we'll bring our 2 alternate members forward. That would be Ms. Blaze and Mr. Jones. Okay? And just for the record, too, that they were here for the last hearing. They're fully aware of what was going on. They've been briefed well. Okay. We have no other comments. Then do I have a motion to approve or deny with any conditions?
So before I make that motion, and my motion will be to grant with standard conditions, I just want to make the comment that in our discussion during the last meeting, during this hearing, I brought up several points, all of which have been addressed by this revision in the plan. So I think that's a very thoughtful approach for the applicant to come back, hear what we had to say, not only work with the neighbors, but work with the impervious versus non-impervious surface area. I think this redesign is certainly a smart solution for what we discussed last time. And so I appreciate them coming forward in that thoughtful revision. And with that, I'd like to make the motion to grant with standard conditions.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Congratulations, gentlemen. Good luck. Hope it goes well.
Mr. Chairman, just procedurally, we do have to withdraw the application for the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Broder. Very well observed. So I believe that was your request to do so?
Yes.
So we have a motion from the applicant to withdraw the need for the variance and for the need for the special permit.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I would second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And to that point, Mr. Chairman, not to keep you, Mr. Broder, but I would have expected, based on the revision, that they were revising their application for tonight. So appreciate the caution on the procedure.
I think the formality is well chosen.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So, what is this?
Question for you guys. This thing is, I just realized I had a bunch of copies of one thing. Is that supposed
All
to be?
right, so we have some signatures to take care of?
Oh, right. Yeah, this is like a solar thing, right?
Yeah, there's 5.
It's for everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone has
We
one.
have to sign it all.
If you look at the lot number, each one should have a
Ah, okay. Gotcha. Thank you. Okay. So this I'll actually hold on to then, huh?
So you can see the town has provided us with some new amended bylaws. I'm sure that includes the solar bylaw, which would be very helpful. Okay, so we have some,
Does the solar I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So if the cutoff was October of 18, is the solar bylaw in here? It is.
That's the most recent.
Yeah. 3.10. I found it in there.
Okay. I was just, I didn't know when I went to the AG. I think I was getting twisted by my dates.
so we have some clerical, oh, God, I'm sorry.
I had the same issue. I thought it was a January thing.
Yeah, I thought it was a...
It's the date of the town meeting when it was approved, although you have to wait for,
Okay, so it goes by the town meeting ratification, not the AG.
that's what this date is, the town
Okay,
meeting
good.
date.
Thank you very much for providing that. That's great.
So we have some clerical decision on 476 Leicester Street, the Seaboard Solar? Yes. Okay. Okay. One of you gentlemen, or both, would like to step forward, introduce yourself, let us know about your concerns.
Okay, so Kevin O'Neill, Seaboard Solar, here on behalf of Leicester Street Solar LLC for the photovoltaic project on 476 and 500 Leicester Street. We're here because, from what I understand, there are some clerical issues with the special permit. On the site plan approval for each of the 5 lots, the date for the plans that are being used is March 14th, 2018. And on the special permit, under plans dated, it says September 17th, 2017. So that's for each of the 5 lots that issue came up. And we would like, for our own purposes, to have that changed to the correct date, which is March 14th, 2018.
Okay. Caleb, have you reviewed the paperwork? Are the dates all consistent at this point?
Yeah, through the chair, there is definitely a clerical error in the date on the original decision, and I did print some MGL for the board to review. Modifications of a decision. The court has reviewed 3 types of modification. First, a board's initial decision may contain clerical errors or omissions. The law is clear that the board has the inherent power, without holding a further public hearing, to correct an inadvertent or clerical error in its decision so that the record reflects its true intention. This power, however, is limited to situations where the corrections does not constitute a reversal of a conscious decision, does not grant relief different from the original sought, and does not change the result of the original decision, and so long as no one relying on the original decision has been prejudiced.
Okay, I think that's pretty clear.
I'm not clear on where the clerical error was.
So if I may, where so for the site plan approval, that date was correct. The date of March 14th, 2018, which if you're looking at the document is in the first paragraph on each of the 5 lots, the documents for each of the 5 lots. And where the date is incorrect is on the special permit for each of the lots, and that is located next to plans dated, and the date that's on it right now is September 17th, 2017.
Okay.
And it should be?
March 14th, 2018.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
You may.
Through the chair. And so what does that effective date mean? Is it an approval date, or what, is it a date of action?
That is the approval date when the planning board approved our site plans.
So, okay, understood. So essentially, academically, we're updating to correct the site plan approval date.
Sorry.
Is that accurate?
I just have one comment.
Of course.
One comment through the chair. I believe the date is the date on the plans that were approved. And it is strictly a clerical issue on the town's.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So do I have a motion on the request to amend the dates for the purpose of correction only, as read for Section D, modification of the decision?
Make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you. We apologize.
So we did have a few other things that we were hoping to discuss with the board.
Sure.
There are a few things that, when we go into the construction phase of our projects, we usually ask for outside funding to help us with this phase. They have requested a few things that, after they spoke to the town planner and the town inspector, Caleb, that they were hoping to get these things changed as clerical issues as well, or clerical changes as well. So can I go through a few of them and, maybe you can make judgments on them?
Yeah, let's take them one at a time to make sure that there's no conflict.
Absolutely. So,
If I may just interrupt just for a second. So, Mr. Chairman, are we opening, not concerned that it's not on our agenda, but I'm just wondering about intent here. I mean, what types of decisions is the applicant asking us to do?
So I'd just like to refer to the paragraph that Caleb read out loud earlier. And the court has reviewed the 3 types of modifications. First, the board's initial decision may be contain clerical errors or omissions. The law is clear that the board has the inherent power, without holding a further public hearing, to correct an inadvertent or clerical error in its decision so that the record reflects its true intention. This power, however, is limited to situations where the correction does not constitute a reversal of conscious decision, does not grant relief different from the originally sought, and does not change the result of the original decision. And so long as no one is relying on the original decision has been prejudiced, by any corrections.
Right.
So we have to just make sure each individual one is really clerical in nature and does not really affect the overall decision.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you kind of underscoring the intent here. And so if I could just ask the applicant before he proceeds, are you intending to put before us additional clerical errors, or are these, I think what I'm hanging on when you had said if we'd like to weigh in and make decisions on things, are these clerical errors or are these other topics that you'd like to address this evening?
We believe them to be clerical errors.
Very good.
However, you might have a different interpretation.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And so just a note of caution, so thanks for letting me clarify that. So I won't interrupt you any further.
If I may, through the chair, just to clarify so the board's fully aware of what's happening, the applicant has had some changes to their plan. The town planners issued a letter on what the planning board, how the planning board's going to deal with these changes. So tonight the applicant would like to present the changes to the board, and then it's the board's decision as to whether they're clerical in nature or whether they would need to refile and come back for a public hearing.
So before we get started, one thing, we submitted plans that were revised and put forth before the planning board as well as the Conservation Commission. We have those plans, the old plans, I have them with me today, and I believe you have new plans, if not in front of you. So, okay, I just wanted to clear that up. So, if you look at the plans, you'll see that Lot 1 has changed from the original plan. It originally had a 1 megawatt system on it. Now, that's just a lot that will be used for an access road to the rest of the site. So it's 4 lots now that will be outputting 1.3 megawatts. However, because of more technologically advanced panels that we're using, the overall footprint of lots 2, 3, 4, and 5 has not changed. So none of the civil plans have changed except for lot 1, which will no longer have any installation except for the access road now.
Okay.
So we are hoping that for those 3, 4, 5 lots, that we could go on record and have evidence that you approved these plans.
Okay. So before I make any comments, I'd just like to go around to the members of the board. Mr. Cussy, your opinion on it?
Yeah, so none of these lot sizes are changing inside?
No, so I don't know if you have both the original and the new plans with you. I have a set of the originals.
If they're not, if it's, you know, if you're telling me it's not changing.
Right, just basically, so where you see Lot 1 site,
Yeah.
that was intended to have solar panels erected on that site. Now they are no longer going to do that. They're going to drop that because of the increase in technology. So you'll be using 2, 3, 4, and 5, and put out the same amount, and that means they'll be dropping the construction on site 1, just using it for access.
He said exactly what is going on. I just want to clarify a little bit the reason why we submitted a new of the site plans. We submitted those site plans just because our lender, our financial partner for this construction, wanted us to submit a set of plans to the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and Zoning Board of Appeal, showing the new panels and also confirming that this approved square footage and nothing else has changed. So the actual site plans that were originally approved for lot 2, 3, 4, and 5 have not changed at all. If you look at the plans, they're exactly the same. We're using new panels, and we wanted to show you that it's exactly the same.
If I may, through the chair, I've also included in your packets tonight, they were on the table when you came in, is a letter from the town planner. And just a reminder, this board approved a special permit for the use, and the stormwater and everything else was reviewed by the planning board and a peer reviewer. So the town planners issued a letter on what's going to happen with the planning board side of it and the peer review.
Okay. Mr. Barron, any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So What I need to understand, and I appreciate commonality, same lot size, what I need to understand, and perhaps this is a question, Caleb, for you to help us understand, the fact that the use for Lot 1 is changing, is that a substantive change in the planning of this, or is that negligible? Because at first, when I heard the applicant describe what was changing, I mean, to me, that's not a clerical error. But I want to make sure that I'm not misjudging the interpretation of definition. Perhaps it is. But I understand that from a technology perspective, they're not adding more solar panels. They're using the same site, and they're reconfiguring the use, in my view. So Lot 1 changes substantially. It goes from panels to no panels in an access road. That's not a clerical, just holistically, that's not a clerical change in my view. But, you know, please correct that if I'm just being too conservative here.
So I'm not here to correct your choice or tell you how to interpret what's happening.
Sure.
My interpretation would be the applicant is probably going to argue that no one relying on the original decision has been prejudiced by the fact that you won't see solar panels from the road. In the original decision, you would. So I guess the board would have to look at whether, although the use may be changing, whether the new use is in harmony with the neighborhood and is actually better or worse for the neighborhood, I guess.
That's extremely helpful because I want to kind of exercise litigious review on what we approved versus what might be grounds for site planning jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe the change that I'm seeing is really a site plan issue. And I'm talking about this out loud for my other board members to just weigh in and challenge this. So substantive change to Lot 1, certainly. I mean, the use is dramatically changing. But for what we approved, I don't think it has an impact.
My impression here is that although, you know, if the previous plan was approved and this one has a smaller footprint, this should be an easy approval. Modification of the decision is the wrong vehicle for getting that done because there was no clerical error in the decision and there was no inadvertent error in the decision because the plan presented today simply was not available back then. So it seems to me unfortunate that this vehicle is incorrect, but it does appear to be the incorrect vehicle.
Ms. Jones, I think that well articulates it, and that the vehicle of identifying it as a clerical error is what I'm hinged on. Not that I would disprove of what direction they're going in, but whether or not it truly could be categorized by, you know, the thoughtful definition that we've gone over. I think that it may, in fact, be the wrong vehicle to get there.
I do wish it were this simple, though, but I don't seem to have something.
And that's what I really needed to socialize with you all as to whether or not, you know, it fits a clerical definition versus, and I'm not looking to argue the intent of substantive change for the use, because I think those are appropriate comments.
Okay, so if I may, though, I think I have some further information in the following paragraph. And I hate to keep rereading, I apologize, but
no,
it says, Chairman. So in referring to the power, this power, however, is limited to situations where the correction does not constitute a reversal of a conscious decision. So I don't think we're making a reversal of a conscious decision yet. Does not grant relief different from the originally sought and does not change the result of the original decision. So as long as no one relying on the original decision has been prejudiced by the correction. So the second, a board may be asked by a successful petitioner to modify a condition imposed in an earlier decision. That's Huntington v. Zoning Board of Appeals of Hadley. Contains an extensive discussion of such modifications. In 1976, the board was requested by a petitioner to remove a condition contained in 73. The board did so after a public hearing. So I think what they're saying here is that the footprint of the 5 lots is not changing. What's changing here is an advancement in the technology. I believe personally that the Lot 1 not being used for erecting solar panels is, although changing the plan is less than what was originally sought for and was given relief to do. And that's just my interpretation.
I think that I interpret it a little bit differently. Those first few sentences leading up to the phrase "this power," if you will, imagine a Venn diagram, give you an idea of where the power begins, and then in that next sentence, beginning with "this power," further restricts it by further limiting it. But what they're requesting here is outside of that circle, the initial circle drawn in that Venn diagram.
Excuse me. I just want to clarify some things. Maybe restate what he tried to explain. We are not trying to make that as a clerical change. What we did is that, yes, the use of Lot 1 is exactly the same, but was approved before. It will still be used as for solar purposes. It's just going to be the access to the actual solar project, because remember, we have the multiple approval, but we see the project as one, and we're still going to have power lines going through the Lot 1, so it's still used as a solar purposes. That is the use of that specific law. When we ran the changes of Lot 1 with the planning board first and the Conservation Commission afterwards, the neighbors were part of that meeting, and they were pleased to hear that we're not going to put any solar panels in front of the lot while keeping the same original size in the entire project.
I appreciate those comments greatly, and I would agree. Here's where I'm torn. I can argue both sides of this. I can argue that it's absolutely being used for the same intended purpose, and if I'm in a butter to Lot 1, that is going to look different in your new proposed plan than what was originally proposed. And I'm not trying to make that argument, but if I'm in a butter and I'm looking at Lot 1, what I was going to look, and actually I think it goes, you know, it doesn't hype it up, it ramps it back toward, now I'm not looking at solar panels. I'm looking at maybe some infrastructure, and I'm looking at an access road. But I'm not going to look at what was originally proposed. So that's a substantive change to me, and it's not a clerical change. And I think that's what this section, in my view, is bound by.
Exactly. Like, we're not, that's why we're not trying to make this a clerical change. We're not trying to make, the only change that we wanted to make today was the change the date of the approval plans, because that was a mistake. That's the only clerical change. And I'm sorry to call you out. Like,
I misspoke, sorry.
He didn't mean to say that. What he wanted to say was that we're going through some changes on the that will be submitted in the construction plans that were run by the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission, and they both agreed that the changes on Lot 1 with the neighbors presented didn't need to be amended on the site plan approval. That's what he wanted to say. We're not trying to make clerical changes on lot uses, none of that. He just wanted to explain why we're submitting new plans, just making sure the board doesn't feel like we're submitting a different application, changing the use. The reason on Lot 1, the only thing different is that we're not going to have panels, but the way that we're improving the road, the signage, fencing, everything else is exactly the same. So the neighbors, I understand your point that they're going to see something different. The only thing different that they're going to be seeing from the regional approved plans is no panels, which
I think, and that may be, not to interrupt you, sir, but I think this is coming from a very good place. And it's not like you're going from a barren lot to adding solar panels, which might be more controversial to someone's view. You're actually going in the opposite direction. And so I think from an impact perspective, I don't think that it changes our original ruling, but I don't know, I go back to Mr. Jones' thoughtful comments that I don't know this evening here. I almost put this in the arena of a site planning jurisdiction and not ours to weigh in on this. Because in my view, it's not a clerical conversation for change.
So again, I think that makes a valid point here, Mr. Barron, is that this really is a re-site plan approval, so to speak. It doesn't modify our original permit approval. So I just want to quickly just read this letter. This is dated March 13th, 2019, from Adam Menard, Town Planner. To whom it may concern, pursuant to the May 8th, 2018 approved site plan and special permit for 476 Leicester Street, the Auburn Planning Board sees no need for a new site plan or special permit for the proposed changes received by the board March 12th, 2019. A review of the drainage on Lot 1 will be conducted, and if found to meet all regulations, a minor modification will be considered by the Planning Board. At this time, there are no modifications to lots 2, 3, 4, or 5. The power generating capacity for lots 1 through 5, which is approved on May 8th, will now be installed on lots 2 through 5. Excerpt from approved January 8th, 2019 Planning Board meeting minutes. Mr. Rodriguez informed the board about an offer to upgrade the array with a higher wattage and fewer panels. The new panels will reduce the 5-lot plan to 4 lots. Tom Shannon of Leicester Street was present at the meeting, and Mr. Shannon asked if the modification would remove the detention pond abutting his property, and if the lot not used would be open space. Mr. Rodriguez said the reduction in panels would eliminate the detention pond abutting Mr. Shannon's property, and the lot would remain open except for the road access and other solar array lots. Mr. Coyle recommended a drainage recalculation for the modification to be completed and submitted to Graves Engineering for peer review. The planning board expressed no opposition to the proposed changes to Lot 1. I trust this letter will satisfy your concerns. Please contact me with any questions, Adam Menard, town planner. So I think we're just making a decision whether or not it has an impact on whether we would grant the special permit or not. Then this goes for further site plan review. It's going to go back to Graves for another peer review. It's going to get a drainage recalculation for the town engineer. Et cetera, et cetera. So
we did that already. Those drainage calculations, they were performed. They confirmed that nothing has changed. We send it out to Graves just to, they can prove and confirm that what our engineer said and calculated is actually correct. But everything that is stated in that already happened. So
I think what this comes down to is the fact that this is, again, going back to a site plan approval, which is governed by the planning board. We're determining whether or not our original decision to grant the special permit is really affected. And I think if the planning board is doing all of this work and they're doing the recalculations and the site plan approvals, then I think we're really just an administrative situation here.
I agree, Mr. Chairman. And only because I'm me and I need to vet it this way, and I appreciate your indulgence, is that I'm inclined to suggest that this does not impact our original decision. But from my view, I would be more comfortable making that decision if I had abutters in front of me that could weigh in on, and I appreciate what's in the letter, but if I had an open hearing with abutters here, and I'm just speaking, candidly, that could weigh in on the changes of that lot. Now, my assumption is that this is going in favor of what they would appreciate and not the opposite. But I think in fairness to suggest that we could just say, well, this wouldn't sway one way or another. We have made determinations. They're all independent, so no precedents. But we've made determinations based on abutter feedback and the impact to the surrounding abutters, the surrounding land. And so I would be more comfortable in actually making the decision of no impact on our previous decision if I had some feedback from the abutters that said, I have no issue with that lot 1 changing because it is a substantive change, up or down. Now, having said that, I'm still more inclined to agree that it has no impact, I think in the direction they're going. But it's just, I'm just vetting it to the point of perhaps, and please jump in that if I'm vetting this to the point of being a little bit semantical, because this is a planning board call.
It is, and what I think, I completely appreciate what you're referring to, especially in terms of satisfying the abutters, and also look from a point of view of liability to the board. But again, I think with Adam submitting the letter for stating what would take place, the town engineer aware of it. Is Mr. Shannon the only abutter to that particular lot? Would you know, Caleb?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Because I think that could have an impact also.
I would also just add that I think that if we put this on a risk tier, I think the risk is extremely minimal from an impact place. But I think I'm just looking to check every box here from our previous decision. If someone were to ask me at any point in time, best information we have at the time to make a decision, we made it at that time. We have new information of what the use is going to be. Planning board is fine with it. I think these gentlemen are coming from a very good place on this. But for me to reach back to a previous decision and good conscience and say it has zero impact, I would respectfully say there's a fraction of that calculation in my mind that says I need more input from the abutters on the impact of Lot 1.
I might be jumping ahead a couple of steps here, but I'd like to ask Mr. Rodriguez a question. So with Lot 1, there will be no structures, just road?
Exactly. The only thing that we're going to be putting in there are, the road, the signages, everything that was already approved, including the plans. That's what we're going to be doing, except for the panels.
And the other lots are completely unchanged?
Exactly the same.
All we're doing is stripping panels from Lot 1?
The only thing that we're moving the panel from Lot 1 using higher wattage and allocating 2, 3, 4, and 4. But the use of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is still solar system. That's what we're doing on the property. That's why I'm saying, we're not changing the actual use of any... the use of the special permit that was given to us. The only change that we had to go through was to the site plan approval. That's why we went to the Planning Board and Conservation Commission first. And both of them said that the changes didn't need to be amending on those approvals. But the actual use, which was the intent of the special permit, that has not changed. We no intent to change. He just misspoke. We're not trying to do a clerical exchange. That's what I stood up. And I'm sorry for the confusion. We're not trying to do that. The only thing that we came here for today was to change the date and just to answer any questions, because I was afraid that, because the lender submitted all those plans, I was afraid that the board might say, oh, what is going on? Are they changing anything? We're not. That's the only reason why we came.
Yeah, I asked because I'd like, if you need this board's approval, I want the easiest way to give you a yes, provided we have the authority at this point.
Exactly, and based on and again, the letter that was provided by Adam, that that's exactly what we need. Just we're not changing the use of Lot 1, as long as we don't change anything else, that we're good to go. Because like I said, we're right now gearing up for construction. We're preparing construction plans for those plans. And if we were to reopen the hearing and actually discuss if we're changing the use in Lot 1, everything else will be backwards. And we're gonna have to maybe just use the older panels to install those panels on the front, which we don't want to do. And the neighbors didn't know. I understand that Shannon was the only one that came to the meeting, but I met with the other neighbors before. They all agreed to that. That's why the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission decided not to amend those approvals, because the changes were minimal.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, please go ahead.
Caleb, please.
Yeah, just to answer your previous question, there is one other direct abutter, and I do have one more point to make. I think what the board needs to ask themselves is, does this change constitute a special permit? Does simply removing, whether he's removing half the panels or all the panels from that lot, would that constitute a special permit? I believe the use, which the board approved, my feeling is the use has not changed. He's just changing how many panels are on that lot.
Would you say this because although he's approved to put panels there, he's just choosing not to? And he is already approved to have the road and the signage there.
Correct. Exactly. It's going to be used for the solar project, so the use is exactly the same. And again, I'm sorry for the confusion that was created because of the clerical mistake, but that was not intentional.
So, Caleb, is it safe to say that Mr. Shannon received notification of the hearing when he arrived at the planning board? Do we know that? So he made comments at this hearing where the modifications for the plan were submitted?
I do not know firsthand whether he received notification. All I know is they applied to the planning board for a minor modification to their site plan.
Right.
I was thinking, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate you asking that question. I also appreciate you thought-provoking of what's really before us. Would we make a judgment call on whether or not this would constitute a special permit? I might suggest, and I follow Mr. Jones' thought of least resistance here on a path for supporting them. Might we reverse engineer this? I don't see us as being obligated to make a decision on this. I see us as the planning board, quite frankly, would bring forward, based on the modification that's been provided to them, would bring forward a stopgap of you need to go back to the ZBA for a special permit on this modification. I almost put the onus on them to make that call and not in a reverse manner for us to weigh in on a previous judgment. The modification's been submitted to the planning board. Is it not their jurisdiction to bring forward to the applicant a stopgap to say you can proceed or you need to go back for an additional special permit?
That's actually very good, because that's exactly what happened, and that's exactly what we did, and that's why we have that letter from Adam and I saying that the site plans didn't affect the special permit. We need to come back to the zoning board of approval.
And I appreciate, not in a resistant way, but I appreciate wanting to take on the authority that we have, but not weighing into a planning board's call. If we were to essentially make a judgment and make a motion and a judgment on this, on that's no substantive changes, they don't need a special permit, and the planning board were to advise them that they need a special permit. They land back here anyway.
Correct.
Well, I think what this letter is clearly stating that they've already been through the planning board process a second time with the requested modifications in place. All they're doing is, we are basically rubber stamping this, saying, we agree with the fact that they're minimizing the number of panels on the lot. I don't think we're really changing. Let's put it this way, if they came before us with this site plan as it is right now, with no solar panels on lot 1, granted what we know now, would we approve that special permit?
I would approve contingent on hearing from abutters. And so I think it's important for us to play that out. I agree with you.
But I think we've heard from the abutters in the past regarding what the original project was. I think we can act in their best interest by saying the fact that they've been minimized substantially by removing a full lot, and I think we're still acting in their best interest, in my opinion.
I don't disagree.
I agree.
I think the risk would be minimal. And so, if your decision would be that we should make such a motion and go in that direction.
Again, when we're having these open discussions, we have no more weight than any other member of the board. It's just that.
Oh, no, that's fair. I didn't mean to put you in that position.
I'm just explaining as all others have expressed their concerns and interest in this particular matter. Again, I think that if we were to just really simply weigh it down to, we've already approved this plan once with lot 1 being full of solar panels. I don't think there's substantial change because I think it's for the betterment of the abutters that lot 1 will no longer have that retention pond. And I'm not speaking for Mr. Shannon, but I personally think if there's a retention pond on an abutting property next to my house, I'm concerned with insects, I'm concerned with bugs, I'm concerned with different things like that. So that's no longer going to happen in that particular location. So it's not going to change his water table at all. And again, with the updated, the new technology in the solar panels, I think we're providing them with an opportunity to just move forward with the project that's already been approved and not really changing anything substantive.
And Graves is going to peer review it.
And Graves is going to peer review it.
I think that sounds sensible rather than require an additional process to avoid implementing the portions of the project that would be most offensive to neighbors.
Were the neighbors notified? Like Mr. Shannon was the only one that showed up?
Shannon was the only one that showed up. He actually was the one that showed up to every single meeting when we were getting the project approved. The other neighbors showed up, I think it's like once to every meeting. But Shannon was heavily involved, and I actually did not talk to Shannon on a regular basis. He was there when we were doing the surveys. And also, so he was. And I also went and talked to the neighbors, and they were like, "We're perfectly happy that you're not putting solars in here." So.
Okay, so I have a motion to close the public portion of the hearing?
If I may, through the chair.
Yep.
Just to clarify, there is no public hearing. This is just a discussion. I think it's important for the board to ask themselves and remember, has the use changed of this lot? That is all that's before you. If you feel the use has changed, then you would need to advise the applicant that he needs to reapply. If you feel it hasn't changed, then the board simply approved a clerical error, and the applicant, out of courtesy, notified the board that there were slight changes that are going before the planning board.
I agree.
I still find it difficult to use this vehicle.
Just to clarify, the clerical change was the date that was.
Oh, on the date issue.
Yeah, that's
a totally separate issue. I think this issue was just a notification by the applicant saying, I'm going before the planning board to slightly modify my site plan.
Okay.
So given that we already changed the date, that was a clerical situation, so we can strike that paragraph that we read out loud two or three different times, and just determine whether or not we can simply modify this special permit. Is no substantial change to it.
Mr. Chairman, I sent us down this academic trail substantially, and so I would submit, based on our open discussion, I appreciate the feedback and the thoughtful comments from these gentlemen. I mean, I submit that I feel that there's minimal risk, and as stated, I would not categorize this as a clerical error or a clerical change, but I would propose that there would not be a need based on, I don't think that the use has changed based on this modification, in short, and I don't think that this should or would require the application of an additional special permit to change the configuration, the use of that Lot 1.
So Caleb, would you like this to be a formal vote?
No votes required.
Okay, so...
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for interrupting you.
No.
So I believe that if our role would be that if we were in agreement, and I think we should just take it down for opinion, if we were in agreement, that we could advise the applicant that we don't feel that this would require them to take the process to apply for a special permit for this.
Through the chair, if the members felt better about each member stating their intention, it would be recorded in the minutes and part of public record.
That's kind of what I was leaning towards. Okay, so we'll go around the dial as we usually do. Mr. Cussy?
I'll grant.
Okay.
I'm good.
Mr. Marin?
As stated, I don't believe that this represents a substantive change to the use, and thereby I don't believe that they would be required to file for an additional special permit.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
I agree with Mr. Marin with my, under my interpretation of substantial change.
Okay. Ms. Place?
I'm fully on board. It's fine by me.
And I agree. So good luck, gentlemen. Continue with your project.
One last question for what we actually came here for. Do you want us to bring the original special permits to do a revision on the first page, or will you guys send us, or can we pick up tomorrow the revision on the first
That will be
page?
more for Caleb.
Perfect. I will send you guys a copy. Thank you so much, and sorry again for the confusion.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Would you like these back? Do you need these? Do you need these? Might as well save some paper.
There you go.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, so on to other business. Again, we have conflict of interest training online that is required to be done for all of us, including our absent members, by April. So if you're not sure how to actually access that, you can call the town clerk's office. She'll be happy to give you the information, the website. Go on, create a login, go through the simple online class. It's like a CPR course, so to speak, 10 or 15 questions, and off you go. So we need to have that done. The next thing is signatures for decisions on 147 Burnett Street, Mr. Ross Magnan, and 347 Roxdale Street, ZPT Energy Solutions 2 LLC. And while those are being passed around, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted for 2/21/19?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Oh, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Minutes have been accepted.
Oh, yeah, I can't recuse
Yeah,
on
you
that one.
recused on that one.
This is the same.
Oh, yeah, it was a special permit and variance.
You're good.
Same thing. Okay, I didn't vote on that one.
No, because we'll have 4.
Oh, yeah, we have
Did I recuse? There's one more in the house today.
Oh, really?
Thank you. There you go. Okay, so I believe we've taken care of all of our administrative responsibilities for this evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Done.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody wants to stay? Really? Okay. Thank you.